Hello, this is Ana Dominguez, your language coach, and today, 8th of March, 2023, I'm going to read a speech that I started to read like before the COVID, and I didn't finish it because I wanted to just show you some parts of this speech from Virginia Woolf. It's called Professions for Women. You probably have heard me already talking about this, but let's read it together. I'm going to show you the PDF with the instructions if you want to complete the practice. Let's start with this. Remember, this is a speech that she gave in 1931 to the women in London in a society that they had. And you know, it's something interesting that in 1931 is the same year that Spanish women started to vote. I don't know if you knew that, but it's something that I have recently discovered. So imagine, 1931, I think was the same year that my grandmother from the side of my father was born. So imagine, things have changed completely. Let's start with this. Professions for Women is a speech. So I usually ask you, search for the words you don't understand in word reference. And remember, those who are preparing themselves to pass official exams or especially the civil exam, secondary and Escuela Oficial de Idiomas, you know that you need to also pay attention to phonetics because they usually give you one exercise, which is to translate into phonetic alphabet a sentence that they choose. So in word reference, but also in some other platforms where you can literally write the sentence and they give you the transcription. So if you don't know phonetics because you are not a philologist or you didn't study it before, you could practice with word reference and that link that I usually share in my private emails with you. Read the text on your own once more at home and record your voice. So after listening my video, recommendation, read it out loud and record your voice. Be aware of your pronunciation and intonation and send me by email a voice recording of 3-4 minutes talking about your understanding of the text. And then I usually say, because readers are leaders, you will gain new vocabulary and expressions, you will get inspired. Keep the good vibes and let's start. So here you have Professions for Women by Virginia Woolf, a paper read to the Women's Service League. When your secretary invited me to come here, she told me that your society is concerned with the employment of women, and she suggested that I might tell you something about my own professional experiences. It is true, I am a woman. It is true, I am employed. But what professional experiences have I had? It is difficult to say. My profession is literature, and in that profession there are fewer experiences for women than in any other, with the exception of the stage. Fewer, I mean, that are peculiar to women. For the road was cut many years ago by Fanny Burney, by Aphra Behn, by Harriet Martineau, by Jane Austen, by George Eliot. Many famous women and many more unknown and forgotten have been before me, making the path smooth and regulating my steps. Thus, when I came to write, there were very few material obstacles in my way. Writing was a reputable and harmless occupation. The family peace was not broken by the scratching of a pen. No demand was made upon the family purse. For 10 and 6 pence, one can buy paper enough to write all the plays of Shakespeare, if one has a mind that way. Piano and models, Paris, Vienna, and Berlin, masters and mistresses are not needed by a writer. The cheapness of writing paper is, of course, the reason why women have succeeded as writers before they have succeeded in the other professions. But to tell you my story, it is a simple one. You have only got to figure to yourself a girl in a bedroom with a pen in her hand. She had only to move that pen from left to right, from 10 o'clock to 1. Then it occurred to her to do what is simple and cheap enough, after all, to slip a few of those papers into an envelope, fix a penny stamp in the corner, and drop the envelope into the red box at the corner. It was thus that I became a journalist, and my effort was rewarded on the first day of the following month. A very glorious day it was for me, by a letter from an editor containing a cheque for £1 10 shillings and sixpence. But to show you how little I deserve to be called a professional woman, how little I know of the struggles and difficulties of such lives, I have to admit that instead of spending that sum upon bread and butter, rent, shoes and stockings, or butcher's bills, I went out and bought a cat, a beautiful cat, a Persian cat, which very soon involved me in bitter disputes with my neighbors. What could be easier than to write articles and to buy Persian cats with the profits? But wait a moment. Articles have to be about something. Mine, I seem to remember, was about a novel by a famous man. And while I was writing this review, I discovered that if I were going to review books, I should need to do battle with a certain phantom. And the phantom was a woman. And when I came to know her better, I called her after the heroine of a famous poem, The Angel in the House. It was she who used to come between me and my paper when I was writing reviews. It was she who bothered me and wasted my time and so tormented me that at last I killed her. You who come of a younger and happier generation may not have heard of her. You may not know what I mean by the angel in the house. I will describe her as shortly as I can. She was intensely sympathetic. She was immensely charming. She was utterly unselfish. She excelled in the difficult arts of family life. She sacrificed herself daily. If there was a chicken, she took the leg. If there was a draught, she sat in it. In short, she was so constituted that she never had a mind or a wish of her own, but preferred to sympathize always with the minds and wishes of others. Above all, I need to say it, she was pure. Her purity was supposed to be her chief beauty, her blushes, her great grace. In those days, the last of Queen Victoria, every house had its angel. And when I came to write, I encountered her with the very first words. The shadow of her wings fell on my page. I heard the rustling of her skirts in the room. Directly, that is to say, I took my pen in my hand to review that novel by a famous man. She slipped behind me and whispered, "My dear, you are a young woman. You're writing about a book that has been written by a man. Be sympathetic, be tender, flatter, deceive, use all the arts and wiles of our sex. Never let anybody guess that you have a mind on your own. Above all, be pure." I remember she's reviewing all these. If you are studying for the civil exam, this is a fantastic text to review what was about the Victorian times. How was the image of women in Victorian times? And if you have been with me and you have seen other videos of my channel, you probably have seen that we have been reading together Little Women from Louise May Alcott. Little Women is purely Victorian figures of women. Above all, be pure. And she made as if to guide my pen. I now record the one act for which I take some credit to myself. though the credit rightly belongs to some excellent ancestors of mine who left me a certain sum of money. She, shall we say, £500 a year, so that it was not necessary for me to depend solely on charm for my living. I turned upon her and caught her by the throat. I did my best to kill her. My excuse, if I were to be had up in a court of law, would be that I acted in self-defense. And I always highlight this sentence that is going to come now, that is coming now. Had I not killed her, she would have killed me. This is a third conditional with the inversion. A fantastic example of how you could highlight an idea with the third conditional and inverted. Had I not killed her, she would have killed me. And have in mind that when you are using inversion, you don't use a comma. And you see that there is no comma in before she. Had I not killed her, she would have killed me. She would have plucked the heart out of my writing. For as I found directly, I put pen to paper. You cannot review even a novel without having a mind on your own. Again, having a mind on your own, having a room of your own. Again, this is a rhythmic structure of idea that she's repeating again and again. And the room is not only physically, it's also the room in your mind. It's also having your own thoughts. Let's keep reading here. Yes, having a mind of your own without expressing what you think to be the truth about human relations, morality, sex. And all these questions, according to the angel of the house, cannot be dealt with freely and openly by women. They must charm, they must conciliate, they must, to put it bluntly, I love this expression, to put it bluntly es como ponerlo a las claras, super claro, tell lies if they are to succeed. Be careful with the word succeed, because succeed or success, people usually say when it's actually a schwa, so it has no sound. The schwa is this kind of sound in English that is like an very, very soft success. So success or succeed in this case is a verb, to succeed. It's also a noun, you know, when you use success, it can also be an adjective, successful, or the opposite, unsuccessful, or successfully, adverb. In this case, succeed is a verb. Thus, whenever I felt the shadow of her wing or the radiance of her halo upon my page, I took up the ink pot and flung it at her. She died hard. Her fictitious nature was of great assistance to her. It is far harder to kill a phantom than a reality. She was always creeping back when I thought I had dispatched her, though I flatter myself that I killed her in the end. The struggle was severe. It took much time that had better have been spent upon learning Greek grammar or in roaming the world in search of adventures. So remember, this is obviously a metaphor. She's not killing anybody, and obviously not a phantom. It's just her own mind. Okay, how she struggled to really move forward from what she has received as an education, and how she is removing this kind of old skin and starting a new life, being herself, being independent, and also having her own thoughts. So I keep reading. She died hard. Her fictitious nature was a great assistant to her. It is far harder to kill a phantom than a reality. She was always creeping back when I thought I had dispatched her, that I flatter myself that I killed her in the end. The struggle was severe. It took me time, much time, that had better have been spent upon learning Greek grammar or in roaming the world in search of adventures. But it was a real experience. It was an experience that was bound to befall. Very interesting expression, bound to befall, que experience that was bound to befall, que tenía que ocurrir, ¿no? Befall es eso también, acontecer. All women writers at that time, que tenían que pasar por ahí todas las mujeres, ¿no? Que quisieran convertirse en escritoras. Killing the angel in the house was part of the occupation of a woman writer. But to continue my story, the angel was dead. What then remained? Esto es interesante, ¿no? Vale, muy bien. Te has quitado el medio ya a este modo de pensar, ese mindset, Victorian mindset. And now what? What then remained? You may say that what remained was a simple and common object, a young woman in a bedroom with an ink pot. In other words, now that she had rid herself of falsehood, that young woman had only to be herself. Ah, but what is herself? I mean, what is a woman? I assure you, I do not know. I do not believe that you know. I do not believe that anybody can know until she has expressed herself in all the arts and professions open to human skill. That indeed is one of the reasons why I have come here out of respect for you, and now it's talking directly to the audience, these women in London in 1931. So that indeed is one of the reasons why I have come here out of respect for you, who are in process of showing us by your experiments what a woman is, who are in process of providing us by your failures and successes, again, successes, failures and successes, important, this word failures and successes, because we all know that we have these peak and valleys, with that extremely important piece of information. But to continue the story of my professional experiences, I made £1.10 by my first review. Interesting how she came to earth with these examples of how much she earned. I made £1.10 by my first review. And I bought a Persian cat with the proceeds. Then I grew ambitious. A Persian cat is all very well, I said, but a Persian cat is not enough. I must have a motor car. And now, this is obviously an example also of freedom and women leading their own life. This is a metaphor. And it, although probably it's also true that she maybe bought also a motor car. And it was thus that I became a novelist. For it is a very strange thing that people will give you a motor car if you will tell them a story. It is a still stranger thing that there is nothing so delightful in the world as telling stories. It is far pleasanter than writing reviews of famous novels. And yet, if I'm to obey your secretary and tell you my professional experiences as a novelist, I must tell you about a very strange experience that befell me as a novelist. Again, befell in the past, before was being used the same verb, now befell. And to understand it, you must try first to imagine a novelist state of mind. Very important this, a novelist state of mind. I hope I am not giving away professional secrets if I say that a novelist's chief desire is to be as unconscious as possible. He has to induce in himself a state of perpetual lethargy. He wants to live to proceed with the utmost, no? It's very, very interesting, this way of emphasizing the utmost quiet and regularity. He wants to see the same faces, to read the same books, to do the same things day after day, month after month while he is writing, so that nothing may break the illusion in which he is living. For all of you that are studying to pass the civil exam, you probably relate to this experience of having to wake up early and concentrate on your studies day after day and having this kind of, the Groundhog Day illusion that you are studying and putting all your energy in that, right? But it's more or less the same with the novelist, but the novelist is creating his own and her own world. It's interesting also that now suddenly has swapped and switched to a male voice, and she's not saying she, and now she's using he. Interesting this. But anyway, I keep reading. She's saying he wants to see the same faces, to read the same books, to do the same things day after day, month after month, while he is writing, so that nothing may break the illusion in which he is living, so that nothing may disturb or disquiet the mysterious, no signs about, feelings round, darts, dashes, and sudden discoveries of that very shy and elusive spirit, the imagination. If I have to highlight any line in this in this speech, I would actually highlight that. I really like the way she has explained what imagination is. From William Blake, we know that started with this the imagination was very important also for William Blake, right? And how he approached that through poetry, but also a poetry that is used with illustrations. So we don't know if it's a picture or if it's a poem, because it's both at the same time. And imagination is this is very important in English literature, the concept of imagination, and the writers have been talking about how they see this concept. Anyway, I keep reading. I suspect that this state is the same both for men and women. Now she mixed that. It's like, okay, I'm describing what happens and befall to that novelist mind, but actually that mind is the same for women and men. It's kind of, we are equal in that. Maybe the content and the approach is different, but essentially she's saying we are the same. We have the same powerful imagination. I want you to imagine me writing a novel in a state of trance. And this is interesting, a state of trance. Now, we know we have started with the psychologists in the 19th centuries. This is the boom, the boom of psychology as a tool of discovering oneself, what you have inside, and so on. I want you to figure to yourself a girl sitting with a pen in her hand, which for minutes, and indeed for hours, she never dips into the ink pot. The image that comes to my mind when I think of this girl is the image of a fisherman lying sunk in dreams on the verge of a deep lake with a rod held out over the water. She was letting her imagination sweep unchecked round every rock and cranny of the world that lies submerged in the depths of our unconscious being. Now came the experience that I believe to be far commoner with women writers than with men. The line raced through the girl's fingers. Her imagination had rushed away. It had sought the pools, the depth, the dark places where the largest fish slumber. And then there was a smash. There was an explosion. There was a foam and confusion. The imagination had dashed into itself against something hard. The girl was roused from her dream. She was indeed in a state of the most acute and difficult distress. To speak without figure, which is like saying things directly, to speak without figure, she had thought of something about the body, about the passions which it was unfitting for her as a woman to say. Men, her reason told her, would be shocked. The consciousness of what men will say of a woman who speaks the truth about her passions had roused her from her artist state of unconsciousness. And I always mention here the more contemporary book that you know very well is Julia Cameron's book, The Artist's Way, that I will link a video over here where I just read some pages from that book. And I encourage you to read it if you feel that you don't know how to continue any creative process. I think that book can help you a lot, especially if you're a writer. I keep reading here and says, To speak with a figure, she had thought of something about the body, about the passions which it was unfitting for her as a woman to say. Men, her reason told her, would be shocked. The consciousness of what men will say of a woman who speaks the truth about her passions had roused her from her artist's state of unconsciousness. She could write no more. The trance was over. Her imagination could work no longer. This, I believe, to be a very common experience with women writers. They are impeded by the extreme conventionality of the other sex. I think this is different nowadays, but that's what she had experienced. For though men sensibly allow themselves great freedom in these respects, I doubt that they realize or can control the extreme severity with which they condemn such freedom in women. These then were two very genuine experiences of my own. These were two of the adventures of my professional life. The first, killing the angel in the house, which means getting rid of the mindsets that are not really helping you. And she said that I think I solved. She died, that angel. But the second, telling the truth about my own experiences as a body, I do not think I solved. I doubt that any woman has solved it yet. She's saying the obstacle against her are still immensely powerful, and yet they are very difficult to define. Outwardly, what is simpler than to write books? Outwardly, what obstacles are there for a woman rather than for a man? Inwardly, I think the case is very different. She has still many gods to fight, many prejudices to overcome. Indeed, it will be a long time still, I think, before a woman can sit down to write a book without finding a phantom to be slain, a rock to be dashed against. And if this is so in literature, the freest of all professions for women, how is it in the new professions which you are now for the first time entering? Those are the questions that I should like had I time to ask you. I also really like this. Those are the questions that I should like had I time to ask you. And indeed, if I have laid stress upon these professional experiences of mine, it is because I believe that they are, though in different forms, yours also. Even when the path is nominally open, when there is nothing to prevent a woman from being a doctor, a lawyer, a civil servant, there are many phantoms and obstacles, as I believe, looming in her way. To discuss and define them is, I think, of great value and importance. And okay, so this is kind of saying, okay, let's get together and discuss about our problems. For thus only can the labor be shared, the difficulties be solved. But besides this, it is necessary also to discuss the ends and the aims for which we are fighting, for which we are doing battle with these formidable obstacles. Those aims cannot be taken for granted. They must be perpetually questioned and examined. The whole position, as I see it, here in this hall, surrendered by women practicing for the first time in history, I know not how many different professions, is one of extraordinary interest and importance. You have won rooms of your own in the house hitherto, the antes, exclusively owned by women. You are able, though not without great labor and effort, to pay the rent. You are earning your £500 a year, but this freedom is only a beginning. The room is your own, but it is still there. She's talking also about the mind, okay, not only about the place. It has to be furnished, it has to be decorated, it has to be shared, very important, shared. How are you going to furnish it? How are you going to decorate it? With whom are you going to share it, and upon what terms? These, I think, are questions of the utmost importance and interest. For the first time in history, you are able to ask them. For the first time, you are able to decide for yourselves what the answer should be. Willingly would I stay and discuss those questions and answers, but not tonight. My time is up and I must cease. So this is it. I have finished for today. Enjoy this 8th of March. I'll see you soon. Bye.